Good. Thanks very much for coming back. So we are 1 hour away from the lunch break and the coffee break, but what an hour are we away from the coffee break and lunch break? An amazing hour with our speaker for this session, Gunther Verheyen. Did I pronounce it right?
Pretty close.
Pretty close. Okay. You know, nobody's perfect. Not even me. Not even you. It's
if I hear something that sounds like it, I'm fine.
Awesome. Gunther, where do you come from?
I come from Antwerp in Belgium.
From Antwerp in Belgium. It is the city of diamonds, right?
I suppose so. I don't have any, but I think we're known for that, yeah.
No diamonds in your suitcase or soon into your clothes, into your hems? No. Okay, less interesting session, obviously. What do we need to know about Belgium? What is Belgium most famous for, other than the European bureaucracy, which is mainly headquartered in Brussels? You know, about the cute, cool, sexy things.
I guess everybody would know Belgium always because of food and drinks. Everybody loves Belgian beer, right? No, I don't. I'm probably the only Belgian who doesn't drink beer, so I have to apologize for that. And for the rest, food, you know, waffles, sprouts, what you just talked about, wheatloaf, chicory, chocolates. So last week I was in Madison in the US, and somebody from Switzerland presented me chocolates, pretending as if Swiss chocolate is better than Belgium. Oh, obviously not.
Perhaps we can run a survey later, you know, is it Swiss or Belgium? Oh, it could also be a good football game. It could also be a good football game, the Switzerland versus Belgium.
Yeah.
Not bad, pas mal.
Yeah. I think in the meantime our Belgian national team is still probably better than the Serbian one. But not as good anymore as it used to be a few years ago, at least. We missed the chance of becoming world champion.
Good. There will be chance for our team and perhaps for your team to become world champions in football or, you know, whatever other sport.
Anything else.
Good. You are not for the first time in Belgrade, but the previous time you were in Belgrade, you sort of were hazy. You couldn't recall.
I think it's my first time in Belgrade, but I'm awfully bad at remembering things. And even if I was here before, I probably wouldn't remember because in general I just travel, fly, work, travel back home. That's sort of the idea. Never look around, just see the inside of the hotel. So I don't think I've been here before, and even if I was, I probably wouldn't remember it anyhow. But yesterday I did go out and took a little walk. So that's unique. The first time ever when I traveled for work that I went into the city and had a look around. So I went to the fortress, saw the river. Quite amazing. My wife has no idea what is happening. You went outside of your hotel room. She's like, oh my God. So I sent her pictures. And she asked me, what river is that? And I had to look that up on maps, and it says Danube. And I was like, okay, it's Danube River. I have no idea. And then I learned today from one of the guys that it's actually what we would call the Donau.
And there are two rivers, believe it or not.
Brilliant, whatever river. I thought a little small Danube thing. It's a Donau, it's a European thing.
Awesome. Gunther, I will let you with our wonderful audience. I kindly ask the audience, make sure Gunther remembers Belgrade, not only for Kalemegdan and the beautiful walk you had yesterday, but also for the amazing, inquisitive, inquiring audience, which really has something to share. We agreed, since you have the workshop session later today, that the questions you can keep for the workshop session or for any time during the lunch break, coffee break. Our speakers, our guest speakers here, they are not only amazing and fabulous experts in the field of Agile, they are also exceptionally nice people. So do not be shy. They are nice and open and humble and willing to share. So, you know, if you see them standing, just go and ask and share whatever you want to ask. This is why we are here. With this, I leave you in the hands of our amazing audience. Audience, I leave you in the hands of our amazing speaker.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Quite amazing to be here because, as Veronica said, I'm from Belgium. I feel like this really tiny guy that once upon a time, long time ago, was born in the tiniest of places, in the tiniest of countries. So it's pretty amazing. So thank you, Predrag. Thank you for the organizers. Thank you to the teams, the volunteers, whatever. What a beautiful venue. Thank you, sponsors, for helping Predrag make this possible. But most of all, thank you for being here. Because you can have a beautiful venue, great speakers, catering, all you want. But without people attending, it would be quite boring and silly, right? So thank you very much for being here. Thank you for having me. My country is so tiny that we don't have direct flights from Brussels, where I live, Belgium, to Belgrade. So yesterday I had to take 2 flights to get here, which stresses me out completely because, transferring, getting your connection is really stressful. And that was proven again yesterday when I arrived here, because I had to it's sort of a lesson. Sprinting can really be painful. I'm a total Scrum guy, I'm a Scrum geek, whatever, but I know sprinting can be painful. Certainly you have to sprint from your arriving flight to your departing flight. So I had to run yesterday, and sprinting painful, certainly for my knees yesterday. So I'm not sort of a big runner. But I want to talk with you about the future state of Scrum. And it's actually also about the future state of your Scrum, and how the future state of your Scrum will help define the future state of Scrum as, let's say, a sort of global movement. And I want to share my dreams, my visions, my beliefs of how I think Scrum could look like downfield, once we start moving it downfield. And I hopefully have a few challenges for you. Now, it's all about the future, so I've got no cases, I've got no evidence, I've got no proof that this actually works, just a belief, a dream, a vision maybe, I don't know. Things certainly I see not happening, although I think they should be happening. Now, talking about the future state of Scrum, maybe not a bad idea to start with maybe the current state of Scrum, or maybe even the past state of Scrum, maybe of our industry even. So what I noticed, a lot of organizations certainly were not organized for what I would call impact. They are just shortcut organized for utilization. So, sort of the industrial thinking, manufacturing lines, machines and so on, producing more output faster and so on, reusing things, considering people as resources, not human resources, pieces of machinery that could be replaced with other pieces, and just producing more. That sort of industrial thinking that doesn't apply to our beautiful world of software development, which is a highly creative activity. And that is a big shift that still, in my view, still needs to happen. And I think we can do that with Scrum. We can use Scrum as an instrument to achieve that, to move from a volume-oriented way of thinking towards value, in a way from output to outcome. Now, there's all these strange discussions on LinkedIn and so on, saying, you have to think outcome, not output. Yeah, you can't have outcome without output, by the way. Right? So you have to produce some sort of output in order, but the idea is in the end to generate a certain outcome, which I would call impact. And that industrial thinking led us to create organizations that look like this. I hope you recognize that. We've separated people, we isolated people from each other, we sort of locked them into silos based upon functions and specializations and expertise and so on. The biggest gap, so there's a lot of barriers between them. The biggest barrier in most organizations still today, I'm astonished by that, is still, in business and IT. I don't know if you reckon, they hate each other. They work for the same organization. They get, in a way, the same revenues from the same sources, but still they seem to hate each other. And I just don't get it. And in general, I've got in those organizations, all those people locked up in silos, and I often see that as sort of individuals running around like headless chickens. Not connected. There's a lot of disconnectedness, not connected to each other. So, but you know what? In the end, we've got governance. We've got governance in place, procedures, processes, and so on, that define who should be talking to who, at what point of time, what handover should happen, what meeting should happen, what document should be signed, and so on. But in the end, it's always been like that, but certainly in today's world, this is just rigid. This is not helpful. It's full of delays, it's full of waste, waiting times, and so on. It is rigid. And I like to see rigidity as the antithesis of agility. So this is rigid. And a lot of organizations discover that. Certainly, sort of today's world, real-time world, 24/7, all depending on software and so on. I think it was boosted a lot around 2006, 2007, where certainly Agile sort of what I call crossed the chasm, because certainly we found ourselves in this internet age, iPhones, PDAs, whatever, so it boosted. But organizations found out, oh my God, we're so slow. So they wanted to change that. And often it was sometimes with things that they would call an agile transformation. I'm not going to talk about, wrote a paper, how most agile, if not all agile transformations, just lead to an illusion of agility. It's as if you're becoming more agile. But what people want to do, because they focused a lot on, transform those individuals into teams. We want to become more agile. It's all about teams. We have to set up teams. So they start combining those individuals into teams. And the end result, but often within those boundaries of those silos. So the end result for me, my observation is, now we've moved from all those individuals running around as headless chickens throughout the organization. We now have those micro teams running around as headless chickens throughout the organization, being disconnected, not aligned with each other, and so on. And that's just because, this is still rigid. I hope you feel that. This is still rigid. Why? Because in the end, more agile teams does not make a more agile organization. People think, agile, that's for the teams. No, introducing Scrum, introducing agile will have an impact on the organization. And if that is not happening, let's just be blunt. You're not doing it correctly. You're not doing it right. So think in terms of, I've got more lean specialists in the room than I will ever be. So don't think Kaizen for once. Kaizen, beautiful, important, small, iterative, incremental change, steps, improvement, and so on. Introducing Scrum, trying to become more agile in an organization that has its roots in the industrial age and in industrial thinking, treating people as resources, maximizing utilization, which is nothing else than just being busy, right? Making sure that every hour of every day your time is filled with, I don't know what it is, but it's all about efficiency, maximizing utilization. So we're all looking at the inside of the organization and not at the outcome, the impact that we have. So introducing Scrum to go really agile, let's say, should be felt as Kaikaku change. And just to translate that, I call it think big, hairy change. Ugly change, unpredictable, whatever, big, hairy change. That's why I used a very ugly type of green to make it clear. So you can't just, I've also written that in a little book, you can't just gradually introduce whatever people would call agile practices within the existing organization, unless your desire is to have that illusion of agility. Which is painful, by the way, because it often happens in organizations spending several years often training all the teams, making all the teams go through the same patterns and the same types of things, and then regardless of context, regardless of their product, their user base, the technology that they use, the product management types of things. You know that when the result of an agile transformation, all teams have to do Scrum, and they all have to work on 2-week sprints, and all of their sprints have to start and end on the same day. That totally baffles me. Because Scrum is a framework, it helps you create some sort of stability, but it doesn't mean that every instance of Scrum needs to look exactly the same. That's the advantage of Scrum. It's truly a framework. Now, the term framework has been hijacked by other people and destroyed in a way. But the idea of a framework is to create openness, to just create a context, constraints, and boundaries within which you can choose what to do. So I'm baffled by that idea that throughout an organization, all teams have to work on 2-week sprints. By the way, if I ask them, why 2-week sprints? There's no idea. So you haven't considered it. Again, you can sort of, what I say, you can standardize on Scrum without industrializing it to death. And that's what happens in those organizations. All teams, same practices, same types of sprints, 2-week sprints. Nobody knows why, because large consulting companies come in and say, it's Scrum, you have to do 2-week sprints. And a simple question, what does Scrum actually say about sprint length? And people don't know. It's just a simple rule, no more than 4 weeks. The idea is to make it simple, a lightweight instruction, so that you have to think about it for yourself, which is something we seem to not like. But in the end, what I miss a lot is that impact. You cannot properly introduce Scrum without an impact on HR, funding, how you fund things, how you work with people, how you do product management, how you do marketing and so on. That is plainly impossible. And still, it happens all the time. So you can only use Scrum effectively if you're willing to rethink the structures around Scrum. And then, again, what is also important for me, don't do Scrum because of Scrum. Don't do Scrum because everybody else is doing it. Know your why. Why are you doing Scrum? Don't introduce Scrum because, everybody is doing it. Think about what you want to achieve. And if you can't figure that out for yourself, let me try to help you. So I like to call Scrum an empirical framework that enables people. Two important aspects. It's about empiricism, meaning inspection, adaptation, regularly stopping, reflecting, to look back, to learn, improve, adjust, and so on. In that sense, sort of adaptability. It's also about people, meaning people, human beings, not replaceable pieces of machinery, people with intelligence, creativity, also nasty things like sort of bad sense of humor, like I would be known for. So human beings, this silly idea that you can expect a person in the morning to come into the office and go through the entrance gate and leave her personal life outside. No, show no emotions, be rational, whatever. How silly that is. So empiricism and people, but the goal in the end is to help those people via Scrum, via inspection adaptation, to derive value from tackling complex challenges. And we all know Scrum, as Agile, has its roots in a way in software development. Doesn't mean it has to remain there. It can't be used in anything. Scrum, in general, we call it for anything that is complex, uncertain, has a lot of uncertainties. Software development certainly is part of that. Absolutely, very important, complex challenge. But the purpose of Scrum is to derive value from your work. And value is, for me, impact or outcome, not just output. And that is important. So you have to think about, why are we doing Scrum? It's about delivering value. It's about generating value, deriving value from your work. And we see product as the vehicle to deliver value. So what I miss in those big types of things is thinking about product. What is our product? What is our vehicle to deliver value? That's what I miss in those, whatever people would call agile transformations, forming individuals into teams. And I found it useful to try to formulate an answer to the question, but what do you mean with product? Because people like to use all sorts of arguments against Scrum for whatever reason. And try to open up the idea of product. Product is not just a physical thing that you would ship in a box. It can be anything. It can be tangible, it can be non-tangible. It can be a digital thing. It can be a service you want to provide. It can be a real product. It can be a system, whatever. But in the end, it might even be an experience that you want to offer to your consumers, your customers, your clients. And that's important. But for me, in Scrum terms, it's only a product if it doesn't just deliver value, but if it delivers value to identified consumers. I call them consumers because you get lots of expressions, users, end users, whatever, buyers, sometimes it creates confusion. So I prefer this idea of consumers. Why? Because it needs to provide at least minimally value to the people having to consume the product, using the service, going through an experience to solve tangible, actionable things. So, and it's sort of to counter the idea that if you set up like those micro teams within those silos, but we build a product. It's some sort of, database system hidden deeply into the organization, or we update an interface and that is being consumed by another team or another department. No, that's just faking. A product, for me in Scrum terms, is not a product if it doesn't serve the people having to use to consume your product. Just take away all those little things. That's a component of a product. You might call that a product. You know what? In Scrum terms, not really. I'm, again, not a specialist, but in terms of, think in terms of value stream. That would be the people totally at the end of the value stream. Nowhere in between, handovers, whatever. No, the people at the end of the value stream. Then, only then, it's for me a product. And again, like I said, that's what I miss. So they form those people into teams, and then I've been involved in a couple of those things. I'm like, but you know what? You've got now all those beautiful micro teams set up. They all work in 2 week sprints, But they still have to throw over work to each other, and it has to come back, and they have to wait for each other, and there's still a release department involved, and so on. It's like, oh my God. So you're fooling yourself into, yeah, but you know what, 2-week sprints. Nice. If you get like 10 teams all working 2-week sprints, waiting for each other, handing over work, throwing it over the wall to each other, you know what, and then thinking 2 weeks, it's just fooling yourself. And there's still a hidden waterfall underneath that sort of thinking. And it would have been a lot better if people think about what is our product, and then organize this Scrum to optimally serve the product. So, and that is my first challenge. It's what I call reimagining your Scrum. So in 2016, it was 8 years ago, I left my work, I abandoned my work for Scrum Talk and came because I wanted to be on my own 2 feet. Me, a little scary Belgium, not an entrepreneur at all. It's still working out so far. Not easy recently, but still working out. I want to be on my own 2 feet. Went out there again to do consulting work with organizations. And that's one of the first things I started sharing with people. Reimagine your Scrum. What you're now calling Scrum has at least a lot of room for improvement, to put it sort of gently. So reimagine your Scrum. And it starts by knowing your product, your vehicle to deliver value. Know your product. And then organize your Scrum for your product. And that goes from product backlog. What is a product backlog? That's not a team. It's a backlog for the product. Do you have a product owner, an owner of the product, somebody with a mandate and the insights to take decisions at the level of the product? But very important, and that's what I want to emphasize, your product should define your definition of done. Because based upon your definition done, what would it mean for us to put releasable, usable increments of our product into the market available for our users? It's now called usable increments for end users, for consumers, as I call them. And then you want to assemble, you want to create, reorganize, reform your teams so that you have all the skills, all the expertise in the team to achieve that level of done. In most organizations, if not all, it's the other way around. In most organizations, the definition of done is a reflection of what the team is able to do. And if you set up those micro teams within those silos, then you've got a very limited definition of done. So turn it upside down. Start with your product, start with your definition done. What would it mean for us to produce? What does it mean to have a usable increment of product available regularly? And what skills do we need to have in the team to be able to do that? And the difficulty seems to be to pick that within an organization, because a proper Scrum team goes across those silos. Because these are not teams. In Scrum terms, for me, not teams. We fool ourselves thinking that these are teams. It's not. Teams are composed to best serve, optimally serve, build, evolve, change, whatever, the product. So it's not governance defining how people should work together. The shared goal, purpose, whatever should be to build that product. And a product has consumers. I've pictured them outside of the organization, because even if you're building systems, applications, whatever tools, I don't care, for that are to be used within the organization, the people using them treat them as if they were outside of the organization. Yeah, but they're still colleagues. Yeah, that's fine, but treat them as end users, as consumers. As if they were outside of the organization. And then you have a product owner. I don't care where that person comes from. The best placed person to make decisions in the best interest of the product. Probably better from the business side of the organization in most cases. But again, it's about context, type of product, and so on. And then you've got lots of IT skills needed in the team to do that typically. And those IT skills probably come from different departments and silos. And that actually means, yes, indeed, we're asking, I don't know, department heads, leaders, whatever, to give up the idea of, yeah, but I want to control my people. Yeah, we want you to give that up and let go of your people so that they become part of a team. And it shouldn't stop there. You might want to have business skills in your teams. I know sometimes things like maybe sometimes data engineers, business analysts, market research people, whatever, I don't know, anything. So a Scrum team facilitated by Scrum Masters, that is a team for me. And it goes across those silos and breaks those things. And that seems to be very difficult, to think across those silos. So start with product, define what done is, and then make sure you have the skills and the expertise within the team. And thereby, I can guarantee you that you will have eliminated tons of dependencies. Dependencies is what's killing a lot of organizations. And earlier today I was talking to someone and said, yeah, think about the mindset reflecting the idea of managing dependencies. Managing a dependencies almost means that you're going to keep in place the dependency. Our first ambition should be to eliminate dependencies. And just by starting with product and having all the expertise and the skills within the team, you've already eliminated a lot of those cross-team dependencies. And you've reduced them to sort of inner team dependencies. People within a team being dependent on each other, which is a lot more easy for them to manage. So that seems to be very difficult. So allow me to throw in a little general definition of team, not just Scrum team. In general, when I look up definitions, I try to make my own. I always start with what I found in the dictionary. In general, find that rather boring, so that's why I think I can do a better job. Not sure if it's working out. But for me, in Scrum terms, a team is a cross-functional collective of people, and they're all committed to that shared purpose of building valuable increments of a product. That is what a team is. And not just building a small component or like was said earlier, a back-end thing or a front-end thing. You want to have that all together, starting with product, serving the consumers of the product. Now, this may sound logical, but it doesn't seem to be like that. So thank you for allowing me to express that again here. And if you think about product, the vehicle to deliver value, value is just a generic word. It's sort of meaningless until you give meaning to it. And again, let me help you. So value, when I ask people about what would you call value, yeah, like I said, value to the consumers, the people using the product. Yeah? So think in terms of value for whom, the recipients of value. Obviously also value for the organization, the people sponsoring you, making sure that you can do your job, that fund your initiatives and so on. That's all very clear. But I don't know how that is over here in Belgrade or in Serbia in general, but what is the point of having a really successful product, high customer satisfaction, maybe making a lot of money for the organization, benefits, market share, whatever, profits, money, revenues, whatever, if your people are leaving the company all the time and they want to change jobs and they want to change departments and they want to move somewhere else. So at least for me, value is sort of balancing act between value for the consumers of the product, value for the people sponsoring you, helping you, making sure that you can do your job, but also value for the people doing the work. And I've called them the creators. So introducing Scrum in the organization should increase, in my view, your ability to deliver value. And that's not just value for consumers and the organization, but also for the value for the people doing the work. And I'm probably very old school, whatever, but I thought that this whole idea of the Agile movement was about restoring at least the respect for the people doing the work. Developers, rather than all those chickens running around them and, you know. So think about value. But again, it doesn't have to stop there. Think broadly. So think about not just value for those, let's say, 3 recipients. Why not trying to build products and services and create services, whatever, that are also good for, I don't know, maybe your community, your local community, your city, your country, whatever, where you live, society, and why not even the environment? Why not even the planet? Think about energy consumption and so on. There are very simple rules of thumb that will help you build systems that use less electricity, whatever. Think about server parks and so. It's all out there in the cloud, I know, but we all know it's not really in the cloud, right? It's actual servers somewhere on the ground consuming things and so on. So think about why not value just beyond those 3 core recipients. So think about it, value. So think about your product, the vehicle to deliver value. Think about what does value mean for us. And then obviously, as been said, regularly close the feedback loop with your consumers and the other parties to know that you're actually delivering value. So that you're no longer blindfolded. But at least without identifying clearly what is our product. Because, you know, product backlog, product owner, increments for the product. So without clearly thinking about what is our product, it's almost pointless in a way to do Scrum. And we're not helping product owners do what they're supposed to do, meaning maximizing value or optimizing for value. So think about it. Reimagine your Scrum. And I remember back in 2016, going out, it was still sort of at the height of the hype of agile transformations. And I thought, I'm going to help organizations. I'm going to help them from really big overnight transformations, a few hundred teams over the weekend, and in leaving on Friday and Monday coming back in, we're now all agile teams, whatever, because we've read some books and did some exams or whatever. I thought I'm going to help organizations. I'm going to make it small again. I'm going to into organizations, help them think about, let's think about one product or one service. Let's see how we've organized your Scrum on that. Let's fix that. Let's expand that. Let's make that better first. And then let's take a number of sprints before we take on the next product. You know, iterative, incremental thinking also on reforming organizations and introducing Scrum. Sort of Scrum, using Scrum to introduce Scrum. Totally unsuccessful, nobody believes me, but okay. I can only try. And then there's the next aspect. So missing is the idea of product when introducing Scrum. Another thing is maybe even more difficult. Updating, changing, upgrading, if you want, the organizational structures. So introducing Scrum properly for a product vehicle to deliver value make sure that Scrum is, in a way, whatever you want to call it, the engine of your work or the operating system upon your work, or sometimes you could call it the kernel, whatever, and then rethinking everything around that. And I feel that it's really important, it's needed, and I'm not the only one saying that. I don't know who's old enough to know this quote. It's from Conway, it's called Conway's Law. So Conway, a long time ago, 1967, sorry, she had an observation saying, you know, well, if I look around and I see the products that are being built, so I'm going to use, so he said system, it's defined broadly, he added to that, so let me use the Scrum term. The products as being created are often a reflection of the way that they have been created. So the communication, the interactions, or whatever you use to create a product will be in the product. Meaning, in that sense, we also sometimes make our users almost the victim of how we produce products. And I can show that sort of industrial way of thinking, not really helpful. So in that sense, rethinking the organization, the communication structures around the product in order to build the best possible product. Not just let the product be a result of the current way of organizing, but rethinking how you've organized in order to produce. Again, turning things upside down. It's important. And by the way, Conway's law there's been research on it. It has been confirmed. Very clear examples of compilers and so on, with the number of steps depending on the number of teams building that and so on. So it's been confirmed. So how you build the product will be in the result of the product. It will be reflected in the product. Again, a confirmation that we need to rethink the organization around Scrum. So my second challenge, reorganize around Scrum. So we already know it's important to know your product. Your product will define your Scrum. It will define your product backlog, the product owner releasing done increments of the product. It will define the teams and the skills and the expertise you need in the teams. But it also has to define the structures around it. And I remember a long time ago, when you get old, it's crazy. I remember by the end of 2015, I think I was in Seattle, really sort of on the other side of that big river that we have. Between us in the US. And I remember a couple of people asking me, so Gunther, how do you see the future of Agile? I feel like, sort of embarrassing question. I don't know, so I threw out something. I said, the future of Agile is in the small. Yeah, that sort of confused them, myself too. So later on I have to think about what did I actually mean with that? Because there was honestly something real to it. So let me take you there. So rethinking the structures around Scrum, it's important starting with the product. And then I launched the idea of calling it a product hub, creating a hub around the product. So not just doing the delivery of the product properly, but creating a hub around the product. In that sense, a sort of mini organization within the organization. Sort of organizational entity in itself. That would operate autonomously or pseudo-autonomously, but never completely autonomous, right? Setting their own agenda and so on. So, and it starts with product. So at the heart of a product is a product hub is a product. And for a product, there's a lot of things that we need to do. We need to sell it, promote it, market it, name it, consider its pricing strategies and so on, evolve it, change it, and so on. Think about strategies for the product and so on. It's maybe part of a portfolio. But at the heart of a product hub is a product. That means a product has a product owner. So we've sort of detached almost that person called product owner from that silo-based structure. He or she is now essentially full-time at the heart of the product hub. And for the creation things of the product, you could use Scrum. That's really great. So the engine kernel, optimizing, creating, evolving, changing, delivering increments of the product, you could use Scrum for that. I would do that, by the way, so the whole idea. But those other things, I don't know whether you want to use Scrum for that. At some point of time, there's been movements of Scrum for marketing, Scrum for business and so on. Sort of baffles me. What is sort of the idea of using Scrum for marketing if it's totally disconnected from the Scrum to deliver a product? Makes no sense. Bring that together. So in a product hub, you would bring all those skills together. You would have stakeholders within the organization, maybe whatever I call in general subject matter experts, might be product management people, market research people, whatever. And you bring them together. You all pull them out of that sort of pyramid hierarchical structure and make sure that their home at office is now in the product hub. And whether those other things also use Scrum or not, I really don't care. I'm the biggest Scrum freak on the planet currently, probably, maybe. I am not saying that a full organization all now have to work in sprints. Yes, if it makes sense. But at least for the delivery of the product, the creation, the maintenance, the evolution of the product, yes, please do use Scrum. It's really appropriate. What those other people do, I don't know, but they form a product hub. They're also being facilitated by a Scrum Master, maybe multiple Scrum Masters, to bring it all together. And by creating a product hub, you create a sort of mini startup within the organization. So away from that pyramid structure. And all the people around that, leadership, management, call them as you want, they act as an investor. Literally a sponsor, making sure that you've got money. Now, these things you see now on the screen are almost literally quotes from that old paper, 1986, the new product development game. 1986, research into the most successful product development companies. Those people already said this. Self-organizing teams. And then, in that sense, for me, important, authority is something, an old thing that we had in our beliefs in Scrum, move down the line. Rather than having all those layers of hierarchy, it's moved down the line. And leadership is shared, is distributed across all the people and accountabilities that we have. The developers, the Scrum Master, the product owner, those other people too. So starting a product hub. And then again, reimagining your Scrum for your product, turning that into a product hub. In the meantime, maybe start with another product, try to go to the same. So do that sort of concurrent change. Don't try to do it all overnight. It will never work. So, and then picturing this within the organization, we already know what we call those micro teams, headless chickens, still disconnected less all over the place. Not teams, we know what a Scrum team is. And we expand that into a broader ecosystem where you have stakeholders, sponsors within the organization. You might have subject matter experts within the organization. And rather than operating from their silo-based view, you bring them together around the product in a product hub. So they have maybe, example, marketing people working full-time for that one product, being totally dedicated to that product. So Product Hub has people that are completely dedicated to the product. And the ultimate goal is to gradually, step by step, iteratively, incrementally, dissipate this structure and replace it with a networked structure of product hubs. Again, think about product, the vehicle to deliver value. Think about Conway's law. Organize a product hub, create a communication structure around the product so that the products you will create will be optimal and not sort of limited by the structures you had in place to produce them. So that's sort of the idea. And once we do that, we will be organized for impact. Because impact comes from the product. Impact is what we have outside of the organization, with our consumers, with our users on the market, against competitors. It's not about utilization. It's not about just manufacturing line-wise, producing more features. A sort of factory idea. There's no such thing as a software factory. And even if you don't it properly, give it a different name. Get away from that industrial thinking into that creative thinking. And once we've done this, we will be organized, optimally organized for impact and no longer just for utilization, making sure that people are busy, making sure that people justify, what have you done on that day throughout the sprint? And then hopefully your sprint reviews will revolve around value. How much potential or real value has a team produced throughout the sprint? Rather than, did every individual in the team live up to their tasks and estimates and so on? So as Scrum Masters, coaches, anybody, I don't care. If your Scrum Master is not doing it, please do it for yourself. Move there. Try to get that sprint review to revolve around value. And not just about value potentially produced, but looking forward. You know, I once said inspection without adaptation is pointless in Scrum. All those events we have in Scrum were designed to help you think about a potential adaptation. So using any of those events just to have a look at where do we stand, what did we do, status reporting-wise, whatever sort of justification-wise, not helpful. The goal should be to start from those observations and then think about what are we going to do with it? What can we learn from it? How can we put this into practice? So that also goes for review. So remember that inspection without adaptation is pointless in Scrum. You could just stop using Scrum again. So it's not about justification. It's not about being busy. Huge management leadership shift at the sprint review. Stop thinking in terms of individuals and tasks and estimates and so on. And what have you done throughout the sprint and how much have you produced and did you live up to your commitment? No, the goal is to invite people and have a look at the potential or the real value that you have created. And then learn what can we do in the next sprint or the next couple of sprints to potentially produce even more value. So it's no longer about utilization. But then still in the end, for me very important, when in 2016 I decided to sort of be on my own 2 feet, this was something that really drove me. So over time, I've been around for a while, as you can see by my beard. Over time I've learned for myself that in the end it's all about people. And that is what really drives me. And I find that Scrum is really a great tool to put people again at the heart of what we do. But I sometimes feel a little bit lonely in that viewpoint. So in 2016, when I left Scrum.org, I had to think about a title for myself. You know, LinkedIn, you need a title and a function or whatever. And when I left Capgemini in 2013, I started my little one-person company to then work with Ken in 2016, continue working as my own. Then I decided to just be that one-person company. And I felt, you know, there's plenty of things I can do. I can call myself the CEO of my own company. Sounds big, beautiful on LinkedIn, but I felt like a little bit silly. Might be my Belgian background, but I felt like that's silly because I'm also the marketing manager, also the cleaning lady. I also do my own support and help desk and so on. And it was just a one-person company. So I sort of intuitively went for something that I hope reflects who I am, what I am, hopefully how people see me. So I called myself a Scrum Caretaker because it's about taking care of Scrum. I always hope that the word caretaker also reflects that I care about people, the people involved in Scrum, which is very important. And that is for me even more essential in the future. Let's restore that respect for the people doing the work. And not just the people, but also it's people everywhere. Because our users are people with changing minds and changing things in our private life. Our sponsors, our stakeholders, managers, all human beings. Respect them in that regard. Don't treat people as robots or whatever. Or these days as AI agents or so, I don't know. It's still people. So that is important. And in my view, what is then missing in our world of Scrum is that so we all know the Scrum Guide by heart. Probably we can just say it up aloud and use the expressions and so on. I have beautiful debates about, hey, why did they put a comma over there and why not a hyphen over there and why is that with a capital and so on. Drives me nuts, all those futile debates over the Scrum Guide. you can only learn Scrum by going out playing. You can't learn a language by studying the dictionary. You have to go out and talk it and learn and fall and get back up. It's all part of life. And what I feel is missing in most Scrum adoptions is this implementation of what I call sort of the two main management principles underlying Scrum. It's not directly in the Scrum Guide. One of them is obviously empiricism, so it's sort of what I call the DNA of Scrum. Now, DNA has two strings, right? So, and it's not just empiricism. That is, although it's very difficult, but it's even the more easy part of Scrum. That's inspection adaptation. That's organizing work in sprints and almost like following the Scrum Guide. That is sort of easy, although it seems to be difficult. But the other important aspect of Scrum to tackle complexity, uncertainty, deal with unforeseen events is self-organization. How to deal with that better than to regularly stop, look back, inspect and adapt, but also how to build on the collective intelligence of a group of people that you've hired to do a certain job without telling them what to do. It was also an important conclusion, the conclusion from that 1986 paper. So self-organization is missing the most. So empiricism is what I call the process aspect of Scrum. Self-organization is what I call the people aspect of Scrum. And that seems to be very scary for most organizations. We like to be rational and cool and cold and beyond those things. And then we've got this strange thing of considering people to be people, human beings. And that's important. And again, a potential definition of what I call self-organization, the funny finding when I started looking up that in the dictionary, that self-organization doesn't exist. I've looked up in dictionary. It doesn't as a noun, it does not exist. It only exists as a verb, meaning to self-organize, which is actually pretty beautiful. It's something that you do. It's acting. It's taking action. So I call that self-organization, the process of people forming organized groups around problems or challenges without external work plans or instructions being imposed on them. And that seems to be very difficult. So empiricism, fine, inspection, adaptation, but are you also letting go of breathing down people's neck all day long and checking in with it? What are you doing now? Letting go. Just wait. It's only 2 weeks in general nowadays. What's so difficult about not intervening during those 2 weeks and just letting go and letting people do what the best that they can do? And I think that is important to mind the people aspect. These are figures from my home country, Belgium. I've been checking with other countries. It's the same problem everywhere. So this is from 2021 because it's a government organization. And it takes some time to process figures and so on. But that trend is still active, meaning in Belgium and I believe across the planet, the number of burnouts and long-term absenteeism of people just keeps increasing. We are killing people. We are burning out people. We've introduced Scrum. We've all become more agile. And still we just continue the rat race, the hamster wheel, whatever. We keep burning out people. Toxic leadership, toxic work environments. So we're not using Scrum to sort of heal our workplaces, which is sad. Because we spend so much time at work. 3, 4, 5 days a week. So much time. How sad is it? That's also confirmed in research by the Gallup Institute. I've taken the last formal data from the Gallup Institute, 2017. They've had updates to the reports that just confirm that it's still there. And they've done research into the levels of engagement of people in organizations. And they have found that on average, across the world, no more than 50, 20, maybe 25% of people are truly engaged for their organization, believing in the company, buying into what the company stands for, willing to go the extra mile, really almost coming with joy to work and do what they want to do. Only 20 until 25%. So on average 15, only 50%. So on average 75, 80% of people not being in that state. How crazy is that? And if you know any sort of parameter, variable that has so much room for improvement, I would love to know about that, because I don't think there is. Imagine we can uplift that figure from 20% to 30% to 40%. Imagine an organization of 1,000 people where only 200 people are really like, yeah, I believe in my company. Imagine we can uplift that to 300 or 400 people. The results would be amazing. Now, the scary thing with those figures is within those 85%, let me round it down to 80%, within that 80% of, let's say, non-engaged people, about 15 to 20% of people are what they call actively disengaged. I translate that into working against the company, working against your colleagues. I've been doing Scrum class at some point with a large international organization with lots of HR directors from different countries. And one of them said, yeah, you know what? Those 15% of actively disengaged people, they destroy a lot more than those 20% of engaged people can do. That is scary. And the other ones are sort of what I call well, they couldn't care less. 9 to 5 things. I enter into the company, watching my watch all day long, hoping to go home as quickly as possible, and then finally live up and do things that I really like. What about creating a workplace where people like to come to work? And that self-organization aspect of Scrum, that people aspect of Scrum, is crucial for that. Let's restore the respect for people. Every single human being can self-organize. Whether they live here in Serbia, Belgrade, in my country. I sometimes have my doubts over Belgium, but let me stick to my belief that every single human being, even Belgians, can self-organize. Whether they live here in Romania, India, the US, whatever, because we all do that. Outside of work, we all do that. So why not get people to enact on that ability to self-organize and use it in their professional environment too? And with Scrum, that is the whole idea. Creating boundaries within which self-organization happens. And risk control or risk mitigation in Scrum is by organizing work in those short cycles. So that in a way, you can't lose more than, let's say, one sprint of work. And then still you quickly learn, it's not going in the right direction, let's do something else. That's better than most projects, that, like 9 months projects, everything all lights green all the time, and then the week before you have to go live, suddenly everything red, alarms and so on. I would prefer this idea. So think about that, self-organizing, self-organization within Scrum. And there are many areas in which self-organization might happen. It's not being recorded, right? That's why I'm a little bit sad. In the latest Scrum Guide, it was replaced with self-management. The idea was, I think, was to make it more clear. I'm a bit sad over that because self-organization, the new product development came in 1986. I don't think we should sort of cut off those roots of Scrum, but still. But at least what is not self-organization, I've called it manager-led situation. That might be the most senior developer, might be the department head deciding who's doing what, might be the project manager deciding who's going to do what. So the minimum level of self-organization in Scrum is a team deciding for themselves who's going to do what at what point of time within the sprint. Without external interventions, no Scrum Master, no product owner, the team deciding that for themselves. And our role, by the way, as Scrum Master or external coaches, or in my case as a Scrum Caretaker, is to sort of service that ability of people. And we've ignored that for decades. So believe me, it will not just magically happen. It will take patience. It will take time before people realize we can truly self-organize. And that may be the biggest problem, impatience of organizations and management. Yeah, you know what, you see 2 sprints ahead, far in time, and they're still not doing this and whatever, and then management starts intervening again, and then people get a signal, it wasn't serious. It wasn't meant honestly. So ask your leadership to be patient. But teams can also be self-designing. Meaning deciding who should be in, outside of the team, what expertise they need additionally, what expertise they no longer need, and so on. So build on that. So if people are intelligent enough to decide who's going to do what within a sprint, and as a team, as a collective, you work towards creating those releasable, usable increments of product, they also have the intelligence to know, hey, in what domain do we need more expertise? Do we need to consult with, and so on? They don't need to be told what to do. And if you move towards a product hub as sort of autonomous semi-startup within the organization, maybe within the product hub they can decide over how to promote people, how to review people, how to reward potentially people, how to foresee lots of things. So that becomes a self-organizing aspect too, no longer a sort of hierarchical imposing of things. And it was confirmed by that same research, Gallup Institute, that this is the right thing to do. Because they have found that companies, organizations, enterprises that actively focus on people, engagement, the well-being of people, that they have better results. So if you talk about value for the consumers, value for the organization, and value for the teams, they have found that in IBM we used to call that key value indicators instead of key performance indicators, KVIs. So you've got business and consumer or customer outcomes. In those organizations, those are better customer metrics, higher productivity. And productivity, I should make up a definition again. Productivity in Scrum terms means ability to produce value, not volume, not just more features, quicker, shorter time to market, ability to produce value. So productivity, sales figures, profitability, all great. But even more important, employee outcomes a lot better. Less people leaving the company, less people changing teams, changing departments, so on. Less burnouts, less long-term absenteeism, less long-term illness. I really wonder in Belgium and across the world, how much worse must it get before we realize that we need to do something. We are just burning out people. We're killing people. Not healthy, not good. And just to be clear, this is the direction. Look after your people first. Create an environment, use that self-organization aspect of Scrum, and you will get, as a gift, you will get better outcomes for the organization and for your consumers. So it's almost like a side effect. Very difficult to get across. Sometimes you want to focus on something to get something else out of it. So focus on your people. There is not a single variable within organizations that has so much room for improvement, from 20-25% up. Not a single one. And I'm always astonished by leadership, how they look at Scrum. I often compare it like, we're driving with a car, and leadership focusing on tasks and estimates sort of feels like focusing on the engine and the power of the engine all the time. But I think the role of leadership and management should be looking at direction and the road ahead and the blockages and the traffic lights and, deviations, whatever. What is the point of having a sort of Formula One type of engine in a beautiful car if you're driving on a cobblestone path with full of turns all the time with other people coming crashing through and so on? Makes no sense. That focus on productivity or performance. It's also why I don't like the term high-performance teams. I like the term highly collaborative teams. Because if you're really collaborating, you will perform. So think about it, because simple truth, employees who are engaged actually just care a lot more. You don't have to tell them to care, they will care. And if that means by Scrum, helping a lot of people realize, oh my God, this is not what I want to do, this is too much about engagement commitment, fine, cool. Then I'm happy that we have helped them identify, it's not what I want to do. I'm going to do something else and find something else to make something of my professional life. That's totally fine. So the goal of introducing Scrum is obviously not to sort of cut costs or get people out. But if as a result people find out, that's not what I want to do, that's totally fine. Makes me happy. Yeah? So think about it. So and on top of that, sort of the whole idea, again, literally a quote, 1986, in order to really get the benefits out of this new thing that they called Scrum and that we've used later on, and not we, but some people. In order to do that, you need to adopt a management style that promotes, supports, understands this process. It's still missing. More agile teams does not make a more agile organization. The impact will be a lot broader and has to be a lot broader. So my appeal to anybody, and I know if not to underestimate you guys, but even if only one person in this room picks it up and tries to do something with it, fine, mission succeeded. It's not for those people involved in sort of what I call mass production Scrum. It's people that really want it, that want to engage, that want to commit. When long time ago, 2003, I started with Scrum. My life of Scrum started with extreme programming, by the way, not with Scrum, which was really fortunate for me. I've been thinking about those early years a lot. Why were they so great? Why were they so good? And it had, in a way, not a lot to do with Scrum, because later on we wrapped our extreme programming in the framework of Scrum. But it was because those people wanted it. They were intrinsically motivated. Those people, I call them developers, with all sorts of skills. We had all skills to build the project that we needed to build. And they were intrinsically motivated. I didn't have to sort of download some intrinsic motivation into their brains. They had it. They had this desire for excellence. That was beautiful. And we had great development practices, extreme programming. And honestly, I shouldn't say this in public. We couldn't care less about the exact roles and accountabilities. Something that I would call cross-fertilization. Sort of the even more evolved version of cross-functionality, multidisciplinary teams. Not just being multidisciplinary teams, but also learning from each other, doing something that you've never done before, knowing that there's people within the team to help you learn something new, bring a new idea because you've never done it before. So we had that. There was fluidity in the team. I don't know, it was early years, so we didn't call it Scrum because nobody knew what it was. We didn't call it Agile because nobody knew what it was. Good thing. So we weren't blocked by those accountabilities. We saw, in a way, I still see that. See those accountabilities in Scrum as an invitation to collaborate across those accountabilities. Not lock yourself into them. So think about that. So in order to humanize the workplace, with Scrum, stop managing individuals. Look at the team and review HR, performance review procedures and so on. It will, in the end, all try to do that. So, and foster that environment. Manage the environment. Also as a Scrum Master, manage the environment. So in the end, to close my talk, so I realized, does anybody still know this? Yeah, it's called a fidget spinner. Even in Belgium we call it like that because we're very good at having different languages in the country, Dutch, French, and then German. And we overcome that by all talking crappy English. So we use a lot of English words. So think about reimagining your Scrum, reorganizing around Scrum, and humanizing the workplace. And I hope you capture, sometimes words are important, sometimes I couldn't care less. In this case, reimagining, reorganizing, that is sort of correcting what you've done. Humanizing the workplace is not correcting. We still have to start with that. But it's time that we start doing that. And if you do that, I call it spin up your Scrum, a fidget spinner. And spin up your Scrum. Go through those changes concurrently. Don't do them in a sort of waterfall way, like a lot of agile transformations go wrong. First, teams, engineering standards, and then involving the business. And that, so forget about it. Do that. Think big, hairy change. So I wish you good luck in doing that. Spin up your Scrum. And if some of you, all of you, start spinning up your Scrum, collectively, bottom up, we will spin up Scrum and keep Scrum relevant, which is good for my income. So do me a favor. Let's keep Scrum relevant. We haven't seen the end of it. So thank you very much.
That was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
So, with the assumption that there are plenty of questions, your session in the afternoon upstairs is at...
Yeah, in the afternoon, we'll spend the session on what it's intended to be. I've got too many material, but I'll be here all day, so come talk to me. But it was so clear that there are no questions, right?
So everybody should come. So they should come over lunch also,
yes.
in coffee break and
lunch,
talk to you.
Find me, yes. Please.
Okay. And before we let the people go for lunch, would you mind sharing with us? John was a while ago pleasantly surprised or liked that there were plenty of women in the audience, which really helps, I believe, the entire Agile methodology and profession. Would you mind sharing with us? There is a woman in your life, you were telling me a while ago, that helped you.
Yeah, my own wife, yeah.
Your own wife, huh?
She has no idea about Scrum, which is good. We're really separate still. We love each other. We've been together for more than 30 years. And yeah, I told you the story earlier on. She asked me, how long have you had that beard? And I had it for 8 years. And it was at the invitation of my wife that I started growing a beard. I don't know if any of the gentlemen have a beard. In the beginning, I was itching, scratching, trying to grow a beard was awful. I went through that to please my wife. And I'm really happy. I can't imagine myself being without a beard anymore. And afterwards I thought back, it was at a strange time. Shortly after sort of leaving Scrum the Talk, entering a sort of new phase, professional phase of my life. So I think there was some sort of physical metamorphosis as part of that. I've never told my wife that I think about in that way, but thank you for that's an important thing. But in terms of diversity, ladies, women, all types of people, all types of personality, extremely important. It's about collective intelligence. It's not about groupthink. It's not about all people thinking the same way. So the part of self-organization is conflict. Conflict meaning differing opinions, opposing ideas. It's important that they surface, that they get on the table so that they get spoken. Even though nobody believes me, I'm extremely introvert. If I would be in the room, I would be sitting in the back, hiding, whatever. If I would be in a class, the only times I'm not introvert is when I'm on a stage or in front of a class. But you need all those types of people in a team. Respect them, foster them, cherish them. Really important. So diversity in all sorts of directions. So go for that. Embrace it. And not just embrace it, just provoke it to happen. So really important. Yeah.
That's a great closing message, Gunther. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing also everything else with us.